All right, so these are the types of parabolas that we're going to have. We're going to have parabolas with, oh my gosh, parabolas with vertical axis. So if the axis of symmetry goes through the vertex, this vertical axis goes through the vertex like that. So what's the equation for it? I'm sorry, you can't see this really well. So it's x squared equals 4py. So this is the formula we derived previously in page 2. So this is a parabola. Since x squared equals 4py, the axis of symmetry is a vertical axis. Remember, the equation of a vertical line is x equals, so that's how you can remember. So if you have x squared equals 4pi, it's going to be a parabola with vertical axis. The vertex is at the origin. The focus is at 0p. And then the directress is the equation of the horizontal line, y equals negative p. Okay, so if p is a positive number, the parabola is going to go up and it's going to look like this. And if p is a negative number, the parabola is going to go down and it looks like this. So this is your y-x plane. And if the vertex is right here, 0, 0, the focus is going to be right here and the directress is going to be like here. So the focus is still 0p, but p right here is a negative number. So think about the focus is like 0 and negative 2 because it's below the x-axis. So then the equation of the directress will be y equals negative p. So in that case, for example, it would be y equals negative 2. It will give you that y equals 2. Okay? So when you have something of the form x squared equals 4py, it's going to be a parabola with vertical axis, either opening up or opening down. Now, if we're going to switch the x and y, if you remember from inverse functions, when we switch the x and y, the graph became reflected over the y equals x-axis. So if, for example, this is the regular one, x squared equals 4py, if I have the y equals x-axis line, and I flip the graph, or reflect the graph over this line, this is going to go like this, and this one flipped over y equals x is going to go like that. So when I switch the role in x and y, so I'm going to have y squared equals 4px, then I'm going to get a parabola opening to the right or opening to the left. So when you have x squared equals 4py, it's opening up or down. If you switch the x and y, so if you have y squared equals 4px, then you're going to have it either opening to the right if p is positive, or opening to the left is p if p is negative. So the vertex is still at the origin right here, but then p, the focus right now, the x-coordinate is a number and the y-coordinate is 0 because the focus is going to be on the x-axis now. Okay, so depending on if it opens to the right, then the p, which is the x-coordinate of the focus, is going to be a positive number because it's to the right of 0. And if it opens to the left, the focus, the x-coordinate of the focus, which is p, is going to be a negative number. Okay? So these are just formulas that you're going to have to remember. And literally, there's only 2 of them you have to remember. X squared equals 4py, which is opening up or down. And then y squared equals 4px, which is opening to the left or to the right. And I was out of the screen. Okay, so let's solve some examples and see how we can use this. I am zoomed in with the actual camera. So let's see. Find an equation of the parabola with vertex 0, 0, the vertex that is always at 0, 0, and focus 0, 2. So the focus, so let's see. What I would do first is plot the vertex. So the vertex is 0, 0, and the focus is 0 for x and 2 for y. So this is my focus and this is my v. So what kind of parabola is this? With vertical axis or with horizontal axis? Well, the focus f is on the vertical axis, right? So the formula is going to be x squared equals 4py. Because this is the formula when I have that the parabola is with the axis of symmetry, the vertical axis. So according to this, I have that the vertex is 0, 0, the focus is 0p, 0p, and then the directress is the horizontal line, which is y equals negative p. So the focus is at 0p, and then the directress is y equals negative p. So we are given the formula for the focus. So that means that p is 2, because 0, 2 is the focus, and in general the focus is 0p. So, and then from this one, the directress is y equals negative p, which is y equals negative 2. So we have found that the focus f is 0, 2. We have not found that. It was given to us. And the directress is y equals negative 2. And how do we find the equation? Well, we found that p equals 2, so that's all I have to do is plug in p. So the equation is x squared equals 4 times 2 times y. So the equation is x squared equals 8y. So this is what we are asked to find. Find an equation for the parabola that has this vertex and this focus. And then let's sketch its graph. Well, I sketched the focus, which was the point 0, 2. And then let's sketch the directrix. The directrix is y equals negative 2. So y equals negative 2. So the parabola, the vertex is here, is just going to be like this. So this is 0, 2, this is 0, 0, and this is y equals negative 2. And then let's find the focus and directress of the parabola y equals negative x squared and sketch the graph. And also we're going to find the focal diameter. So what is the focal diameter first? I forgot. So focal diameter is the length of this segment right here that goes through the focus and stops on the parabola. So it has to go through the focus, it has to be parallel to the directress, and it stops at the parabola. So I know that the distance from this point to the directress the distance from this point to the directress has to be equal to the distance from this point to the focal. But I know this distance. What is this distance from here to here? If this is 0 and this is p right here, then that means that this distance right here is p, and 0 is on the parabola, so the distance from it to the focal has to be equal to the distance from it to the directress. So this one is also p right here. So this distance is 2p from here and here. So this is 2p and this is 2p. So this distance that is called the focal diameter is going to have to be 4p. And since it's a distance, I have to make sure that it's a positive value. So when p is negative, I still want to say that the focal diameter is a distance and its absolute value of 4 times p. So let's see. Find the focus and directress of this parabola. So y equals negative x squared. First of all, we have to bring this equation in the form that we have. So Recall the forms that we have so far. It's either x squared equals 4py or y squared equals 4px. So it's not in this form, so I have to isolate x squared. So, because I have to have it in the form x squared equals something. So I'm going to have that x squared equals negative y. I just divided by -1 both sides. So, there you go. What kind of parabola is this? Well, it's in the form x squared equals something. So it's going to be a parabola with vertical axis. So let's find p. So in general, a parabola of that type is equal to x squared equals 4py. So if you look at these two things, then the y is here. So I must have that 4p equals -1, because that's what this negative. So the only difference between these two is that. So I must have that 4p equals -1, and this is going to give us that p is -1/4. So if p is -1/4, so p is negative, so our parabola, to sketch it now, is going to be a parabola opening down. So the focus is f is 0p, and we found that p is -1/4, and then the directress is y equals -p, so y equals -1/4, so the directress equation is y equals 1/4. So now, and then, I'm sorry, the focus, the directress, and then the focal diameter is absolute value of 4p, so it's going to be absolute value of 4 times -1/4, so it's going to be absolute value of -1, which is 1. So with all this information given, let's sketch the parabola. So I have the xy coordinate plane. I know that the vertex is 0, 0. And then I know that the focus is at 0, -1/4. So let's say that this is -1/4. So this is the focus. This is the vertex. And then the directress is y equals 1/4. So if this is 1/4, -1/4, the directress is going to have to be this horizontal line, y equals 1/4. And the parabola opens down because p is negative. So I'm going to draw it. This is the parabola x squared equals -y. And recall that the focal diameter is going to be this segment, line segment, that goes through the focus. So this right here is 1, this whole segment right here. Now, what if I have a parabola that has the equation 6x plus y squared equals 0? Well, first of all, let's bring it into one of the known forms. So this is what we have, the two forms. So since y is squared, I'm going to have to bring it into the form y squared equals 4px. Okay? So y squared equals 4px is going to be a parabola either opening to the right or to the left, depending on the p-value. So let's rewrite it to bring it in this form. So I'm going to subtract 6x from both sides. Y squared equals -6x. And there you go. It's already in this form. So compared to our form, that means that 4p has to be equal to -6. So 4p has to be equal to -6. That gives us that p is -6/4, which gives us that p is -3/2. So that means that the focus, which is, remember the focus for a parabola with horizontal axis is going to be a point on the x-axis, so it's going to be p0. P0. So the focus for this one is going to be, we found that p is -3/2. and 0. So since p is negative 3/2, the parabola is going to open to the left because p is less than 0. All right, so we found the focus. What about the directrix? The directrix is y equals negative p. So y equals negative 3/2. So y equals 3/2 is the directrix. Okay, and then the focal diameter is just absolute value of 4p. So it's going to be absolute value of 4 times negative 3/2, which equals absolute value of negative 6, which equals positive 6. So see why we needed to put absolute value, because when p is negative, I got to make sure that the answer is a positive number, because focal diameter means a length, and a length is positive. All right, so now we have all the information to draw the sketch of the graph. Yeah. So I'm going to write my x, y first. I know that the vertex, we're only going to talk about parabolas with vertex at the origin, and then the focus is negative 3/2 and 0. So this is negative 1, negative 2, negative 1.5. Right here is the focus. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. The focus is on the x-axis. The focus is on the x-axis, so 1, 2, so 1.5 right here. And it's negative. Okay, let's just start again. Sorry. So focus is negative 3/2, 0. So negative 1, negative 2, so negative 3/2, 0. That's the focus. That's the vertex. So this is the vertex, 0, 0. Focus is negative 3/2 and 0. And then we have that the directrix is y equals 3/2. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3/2 right here. So the directrix now is a vertical line, and we know that the equation of a vertical line is x equals 3/2. X equals something. So I'm going to fix this mistake right here. The directrix is going to be a vertical line in this case. So it's x equals x equals. So many mistakes. All right, so since p is negative, this is a parabola opening to the left. So it's going to look like this. And then this distance, the focal diameter from this distance from here to here is equal to 6. Focal diameter is 6. Okay, so we will stop here. You guys will practice with the homework. The homeworks have more videos if you need to, but it all comes down to, do you have a parabola like this, either opening up or opening down, or do you have a parabola like this, opening to the left or opening to the right? So P is the one that tells you if it's up or down or to the left or to the right, and then the fact that the x is squared is going to tell you if it's going up or down, having the y-axis as the axis of symmetry or the x-axis the axis of symmetry.